Alright, I'm here with some 7120 heads from a Jeep 4.0 liter engine. This head has some cracks in the combustion chambers of cylinder 1 and 2. So I bought a used head and I'm trying to prepare this for installation. Looking at the valves, I discovered that this exhaust valve has excessive pitting in it. See that? Okay, when combustion occurs, you want the valve to be seated in the valve seat so no combustion gases escape past it. During the exhaust stroke, this will open and then the piston's going to force out the exhaust gases. That's normal. All other times this should be closed and seated. So my concern with these pits is that during the combustion process, gases are going to start leaking past here. And as they start leaking past, this is the type of damage that can happen. And here we have two extreme examples. So I have 6 valves here in my old head. Let's take a look at them and see if there's one that we can use that's in acceptable condition for installation in our replacement 7120 head. So this head had an overheat, and it overheated because the core plug at the end of the head here corroded out. That allowed water to escape. Here's where the corrosion builds up on your core plugs. This is out of a different engine. Here's where it corroded through on that one. This is just where I popped it out. So this core plug's kind of interesting. This one came out of my used head that I purchased as a replacement for my cracked head. And as you can see, I was told this head had just come from the machine shop. Obviously, that was disinformation. Okay, when this head overheated, obviously that's what caused this scorching on these exhaust valves here. So this is an indication that this valve has been overheated severely. See that? This one I took out and tried to clean up. And I've decided that I'm just going to purchase a new exhaust valve. That'll slow me down, but better safe than sorry is my thought process on this. $21 online. I'm this far along, I'm not going to risk it. Okay, the pitting that we're seeing on this valve looks to me like it sat seated in a head and corroded in there. So this is a good example about what I'm talking about. See, this valve won't come out. This is my old head. It's been sitting for a little while, but it's already basically rusted in there. I'm going to take this hammer. And there's more scorching. Look at how far up that was scorched. So as this valve is articulating up and down, your valve stem seal is metering a small amount of oil to keep your valve stem and the valve guide lubricated. Let's get a little oil out of here. So this valve stem seal is metering a small amount of oil to keep this lubricated. In a stock head, your valve guides are part of this iron casting. Metal is cast into this shape and then it's machined to make the valve guide. It's part of the head on a stock 4.0 head. So your valve stem seal is metering a little bit of oil to keep this lubricated. So let's talk about this exhaust cavity right here. Okay. On the intake stroke, this is going to be seated. The intake valve will open, and as the piston comes down, that suction is pulling in air-fuel mixture. On the compression stroke, they're both closed. On the power stroke, they're both closed. And as the piston comes around to the exhaust stroke, this begins to open, and the piston is going to force exhaust gases out this opening. Okay, once again, your valve stem seal is metering some oil to keep this lubricated. Valve stem to the valve guide. So we just talked about the process of intake, compression, power, and exhaust. In this exhaust chamber, if this is closed, except on the exhaust stroke, where the piston is pushing air out this opening, what's going to happen to any oil that gets in this compartment right here? It's just going to stay there, isn't it? So any oil that's in here that did get past your valve stem seal, and there's some going to be in here to lubricate the valve stem and the valve guide. But what happens to this oil if it's heated in the absence of oxygen and ignition is that's just going to sit here, and then the heat's going to cause some of these properties of the oil to go out the exhaust path. And what's left is your carbon buildup. When you make petroleum products, and even you take coal and you heat it in the absence of oxygen, that's coking or petroleum refinement. That's basically what's happening in here if too much oil gets in here. So those processes cause the carbon buildup in here. And if a little piece of carbon breaks off and this thing's trying to seat and a carbon's stuck in there, that can also cause some damage. But this particular valve, to me, looks like those are rust pits caused by this valve just sat seated without oil in here to lubricate. This is going to rust up right away. All right. Okay, with the crack in this cylinder, one here and one here, detonation was happening in the combustion chamber. And that's the damage we see on this intake valve. Now I'm going to pop out this exhaust valve just to take a good look at it. Okay, look at that carbon buildup on this one. So this is the little particles of carbon that can break off. See that? And damage your valve. But look at the damage here on the valve seat also. The more that I look at this, I'm amazed that this engine started and ran like it did. That's a true testament to the 4.0 reliability and toughness. This cylinder's got a crack here, a crack here. Wasn't even firing, and when it did, it was detonating at the wrong time. Intake valve's damaged. So that valve seat is eroded right here. And look at this, there's another crack that I did not identify until now. So number 2 combustion chamber in the head had 3 cracks in it. So there's carbon buildup in this exhaust chamber. There's also a good look at the in-cast valve guides. This is a stock 7120 head, and there's your valve guide. It's part of the cast iron. All right, let's take a look at the new valve that I bought. D&J valves. Certainly looks like the correct valve, doesn't it? D&J etching on there. Boy, that's beautiful, isn't it? All right, let's take a look at some in-cast valve guides from the top. In-cast valve guides are part of the head casting. The stock heads on the 4.0 liter are made out of cast iron, and then the casting is machined to craft the valve guide. There's a valve guide boss that's machined. And then there's this chimney right here that's machined. So you machine your cast iron, you drill a hole in it. And that hole is where the valve articulates open and closed. The boss and the chimney are where your valve guide stem seats. See that? Can you replace a valve guide in a stock 4.0 head? Yes. You drill out more casting material, and then you insert a replacement valve guide. So you could replace a valve guide at home if you had the correct machining tools. But as you can see, this is not flush with the deck of the head. Okay. So removing this material and drilling that hole, it's a little bit offset from the level of the head. If that hole isn't drilled perfectly aligned with your valve seats, it's critical that the valve face and the valve seat mate. If it's not drilled exactly, you can imagine that's not going to seat right. When you're working on your Jeep, though, buying new tools, no matter what the cost, is not a factor. I don't have the floor space for the machine equipment. Okay, I'm going to break out my aftermarket head, and we're going to look at in-cast valve guides on that head. We'll take a look at the combustion chambers to identify which of those combustion chambers and associated cylinders had the defect, and that defect was causing a knocking noise. Turns out the piston skirt was broke. Okay, let's take a look at this aftermarket head. First thing let's look at is the exhaust valves. That's a gray, slightly tan, brownish. That's normal combustion. This combustion chamber, not so much. That's more of a black color, dark gray. This combustion chamber's running rich. Okay, this is an aftermarket head. Right here is the serial number. Okay, we know it's an aftermarket head because there's no casting identification anywhere on this. This is the driver's side. Here's the center crown bolt. Right here would be the casting number. 2686 7120 0630 or 0331. Right here would be the year of casting, and here is other foundry identification marks. Okay, my observation on this cap here, this is where the temp bulb would go for your temperature indication. By inspection and my observation, this is a clear water head, just because of the plug that is in there. Okay, I'm just going to select one cylinder here to take the valves out, and we're going to look at the valve guide on this. Okay, this is the valve guide. And this is a in-cast valve guide. This cast iron head was drilled, and the valve is going to articulate in the drilled hole in the cast iron. So if you have a stock head, your valve guides are in cast valve guides. So that's a machined hole in the cast iron. While we have these two valves out, let's take a look at our valve stem seals. And these look to be Viton. I'm not going to take these off to measure it. Viton is a rubber. It's a good oil, fuel, chemical solvent resistant rubber. But I've never actually seen this style before. Okay, that's what an in-cast valve guide is. This head is cast from cast iron, machined, in the holes where the valve articulates open and closed is part of the casting. Now a stock machine boss for your valve stem seals on an in-cast valve guide is 0.53. That's what size you're going to get in your Fel-Pro kits or your head rebuild kits. A valve stem seal for a 0.53 machine boss, and then the depth is 11/32. The reason I'm not using that aftermarket head is because I'm concerned it will damage my bottom end. This head has been in service with the block in my 95 Jeep Cherokee Sport, and they are wearing at the same rate, at the same mileage, under the same conditions. My concern is putting an aftermarket head on a used engine, and that engine's been used and abused. It's been rebuilt once, it's bored out 30 over. But a new head, it's a phenomenon with the 4.0 liter. You fix the head, machine it, the bottom end goes out on you. So why does that happen? Well, after 100,000 miles, the efficiency of this head and the sealing of the valves is degraded. You put in a head that seals up really nice, and more of the combustion stoke energy is transferred into the combustion chamber and not popping out past the valves. The bottom end goes out on these engines. It happened to me, and then the machinist who works on these told me that that is very common. So you rebuild the head or put a aftermarket head on an old engine, you run the risk of blowing out the bottom end. And what I mean by that is your combustion gases are escaping past the pistons and cylinder walls into the crankcase, and that built up pressure causes your rear seal to go out, and you got oil all over the place. So that's up to you. I'm just relaying tribal information from the machinist. All right, let's take a final look at in-cast valve guides. And what would be required to drill one out and insert a replacement valve guide. So the first thing to look at is these are not perpendicular to the head. You see that? By observation and inspection, you can see this side is deeper than this side. So these are sitting at an angle in here. So to run a drill down this cast iron, first of all, you're going to have to somehow line this up with your drilling machinery. And the chimney in inches here on a stock 4.0 head is approximately 0.53. Okay, on a stock 4.0 head, you have 0.53 inches of material here to play with. 0.53 is a ½ inch and 30 thousandths. The new ones that are pressed in here as replacements come as 0.50 and then an interference fit. 0203. So let's take a look at a 1/2 inch drill bit. This would be the size you would want to use to remove this. This is a wood 1/2 inch, but this gives a better example of what you would use. So I suspect the machinist would use a smaller size first and drill through there and get himself lined up and orientated. So probably start out with a smaller size, drill through there, with a chisel, knock the chimney off, and then finish up with a 1/2 inch hole. With a 1/2 inch hole, and the replacement valve guides a little bit larger than a 1/2 inch, a good idea would be to heat the cast iron, cool the valve guide down with a freezer, or perhaps liquid nitrogen would be the material at the machine shop, and then drive it in. Can it be done at home? Sure. All right, we're going to go to a machine shop and get a little video of some modern machining equipment. All right, if you're going to drill a hole in your 4.0 head, this is the kind of setup you're going to need. You got enough money to dish out for this, or the floor space for it? Okay, that's it.